Hi everyone, Sophie from English GCSE here, and today I've got for you a section from the opening stage directions from Priestley's And Inspector Calls. I know a lot of you have to study this play for your English literature exam, and I wanted to draw your attention to these opening stage directions because although teachers across the land seem to be giving students this section to annotate, or at least to read through and answer questions on initial impressions, my findings, particularly when students come to write their essays about this, is that they're not really drawing on these as much as they should. So with that, I wanted to take a little paragraph section from these stage directions, which is right at the beginning in Act 1, to annotate it with you and to explain why these are so important. Now, the section I've got here, you may notice I've cut out some bits and it's sort of been rearranged to include what I consider the most pertinent parts. That's not to say you get to skip reading the whole section. I just wanted to make a size of text and an amount that was much more digestible in one of these videos. Nevertheless, I would say a lot of it is relevant. There's some right at the beginning that talks to, it's where Priestley describes to a director how they may wish to set out the stage, and it is useful. But this section here that I put together for you, I would say that this is probably where you're going to get most of your key character quotes, because when students hand essays into me, I find that they generally forget about this section right at the beginning, where your initial impressions of the characters are made clear by the playwright. So that's why this is so important. So let's have a look at it, a read of it. I'm just going to read through, and I'm going to use pencil too to say why certain things maybe stand out to me. Okay. The dining room of a fairly large suburban house. Adjective large, so I'm thinking wealth. They're at least comfortable, right, if they can have a large house. Suburban, you'd be surprised how many people don't know what suburban means. I'm going to highlight this too because this is important. Out in the suburbs, so they're not in the city, but they're not right out in the country either. Okay, it's just a location really. Belonging to a prosperous manufacturer. Okay, so I'm looking here, and this is what I usually do in my videos. I look at language in sort of three ways, if you like. AO1, understanding. So what do I understand by the words on the page? So I've already explained large to me connotes wealth. Okay, prosperous, the same really. Prosperous literally means wealthy. There's still a definition of it. Manufacturer, by that he makes and creates wealth through business. We know as we read on that this manufacturer is of course Mr. Birling. It has good solid furniture from the period. Note solid furniture. I think it's 4-star hotels. I always use this as an example to explain to my students the importance of furniture, but you can't have, I think it's a certain star rating. It's either 4 or 5-star. Anyone who goes to lots of hotels, please feel free to post in the comments which one it is. Without solid furniture. So there's a certain standard at which you have to have. So you can't have your IKEA flat packs. They have to be sort of solid oak furniture to qualify as that for, I think it's 5-star hotel. Okay, so by solid, again, this is all linking to the idea of wealth. The general effect is substantial. Oh, look, lots of words that indicate wealth. Heavily comfortable. Okay, so I'll come back to heavily and comfortable in a moment, but not cozy and home-like. So to me, this depicts that whilst they have wealth and lots of things, I love to use this phrase because I think it really sums things up quite well. It's a house, but not a home. You may have heard this sort of idiom before. I don't know if it even used as an idiom. It's more sort of house, not a home. It's somewhere that's big and comfortable and spacious, but it's not cozy and warm and inviting and homely. So the difference I would compare this to is, think about if you stay in a lovely little B&B and it's really comfortable and maybe they have 4 or 5 rooms, so when you go down to breakfast, there's sort of you and maybe, you know, four other families staying there, and the hosts are really chatty and inviting, and there's the real hospitality element to it. Compare that to, say, one of the big hotel chains. I'm not saying hotels aren't nice, you know, you get good service at the Hilton, for example, but it's not going to be that warm and inviting and homely environment you get with a, you know, not that very personalised service you get with a B&B. So that's kind of what I mean by house not a home. We're getting this sense that maybe money has taken precedence over personal relationships, perhaps. Right, this is important stage direction that people miss, or at least don't see in the depth that I'd like them to. The lighting should be pink and intimate until the inspector arrives, and then it should be brighter and harder. Okay, this is going to lead me to go on to my AO2. So AO2 is terminology. Assessment objective 2 refers to terminology. I already pointed out that large was an adjective. Here, I'll go over it in colour. It's a word class, but it connotes wealth. Now, brighter and harder, look at the ER endings on there. They're both adjectives because they're describing something, but the ER makes them comparatives. Brighter and harder than. So a comparative is still an adjective. It's just within a class of adjectives that use the often use the ER ending, and they compare. Literally, the clue's in the title. So the lighting should be adjective, adjective, pink and intimate. By that, I'm thinking my connotations, again, AO1, connotations you could use as terminology, but I'm linking AO1, AO2 here. Connotations, pink and intimate, cozy, warm. Pink's a lovely warm shade, suits me really well. But, you know, I'm a warm, so. But I love the kind of connotations of pink. Okay, I'm thinking comfortable, inviting. Okay, and then until the inspector arrives, so he triggers a change, which we know that's the whole, that's really what the whole play's about. I mean, he comes and inspects the family and their morality. Brighter and harder. So think about dramatic devices. So if something's a dramatic device, come under AO2. There's language and dramatic devices. Language devices are within plays, but I use dramatic device because this is a play and because these are all stage directions. That's why it's in italics, okay? So the overarching, what this is, stage directions, okay? I'm writing that here, stage directions, because that's what these are. These are all stage directions. But within that, so brighter and harder, I said dramatic device. You could use a spotlight on him. I don't know. That's a director decision. Obviously, this is written by the playwright, and it's up to the director within their production how they wish to interpret these stage directions. Okay, that is their decision. That's why no production is ever the same. That's why teachers often take you to see certain productions of plays, because it gives you a taste for how they've been interpreted. Okay, and this sort of stuff comes under AO2, and there's a little bit of context, but I'll come to that in a bit. But that's why, and if you're a drama student, you'll find a big overlap between literature and drama in the sense of the way that you're analysing plays and writing about them. So, brighter and harder, connotations of that, well, unpleasant. No one likes having a spotlight sort of shone upon them. Unpleasant, not very nice. Okay, I'm thinking bright light right on you, and I'm thinking it would probably be, because if this is pink and intimate, maybe this would be a cold light. But, you know, unpleasant, harder. You've heard the phrase shine a light on one's life to inspect how you're feeling. So I'm going to write examination or examines subject. Or subjects, okay? So I think you get the idea from this one, but don't forget that key piece of, well, this is a line, it's a stage direction, but you could use this for the inspector if you get an inspector question, okay? Because it shows the lighting, which is a stage direction, how that is affected from when he arrives, okay? So that's the quote in here I'd use for the inspector. Moving on. At rise of curtain, the 4 Birlings and Gerald are seated at the table, with Arthur Birling at one end and his wife at the other. Okay, so you've got this table, usually the head of the house. AO1 understanding. Okay, I'm thinking of him as head of house, sits at one end, okay, because he's the father, and wife at the other. Wife mirrors him. So this is still stage directions, but look at their positions, okay? Everything in this play has been written, edited, edited again. There's no mistakes. It's all on purpose, okay? Eric downstage and Sheila and Gerald seated upstage. Read into the downstage and upstage as you will. We could be going too deep here, but you've got these two together, and he's kind of on a limb here. And we know that all is not right with him as we see through the play with his drinking. Edna, the parlourmaid, is just clearing the table, which has no cloth, of dessert plates and champagne glasses. Okay, so let's look at symbolism, AO2 terminology. I'm going to just write it once because you're going to see that a lot of things, symbolism, a lot of things relate to, yeah, you guessed it, wealth. Okay, we keep coming back to the idea of wealth, and that's completely on purpose. So it's kind of a game of spot all the items that connote wealth. Dessert plates, champagne glasses, definitely. Replacing them with a decanter. If you don't know what a decanter is, it's a lovely, usually crystal container, so high. Okay, and you use it to pour out the whiskey or whatever it is, pour in this case into, you know, crystal glasses. It's usually crystal glasses for drinks with dinner, usually after dinner. So it's a luxury item, but these are quite a nice luxurious item. Cigar box and cigarettes, again, luxury item. This is set in 1912, okay, so this is bringing me to my third colour. Yep, it's got to be the pink, hasn't it? I knew you were all thinking that. AO3 context. So let's get this really clear. You probably had it drummed into you a lot, but it's set in 1912. Okay, but it's written in 30s, late 30s, okay? But it's set here. So again, these are luxury items. Not a lot of people would have had that. This is the Edwardian era. Make sure you know that. Edwardian era, okay? Before World War One. Okay, a couple of years before World War One, so they're quite wealthy. Port glasses are already on the table, so it looks like they've just eaten. They're having port. Usually have cheese and port after dinner. That's a tradition that still exists. All five are in evening dress. Again, just going to point this. Wealth connotes wealth, but the symbolism I mean with the objects, the actual items. Okay, the decanter, the glasses, the cigar box, that sort of thing. Men in tails and white ties, not gender jackets. Arthur Birling, right, these are the character quotes. These are important. I want these to be the first quote that you store for each character. So Arthur Birling is a heavy-looking, rather portentous man in his middle 50s with fairly easy manners, but rather provincial in his speech. Portentous, just in case you didn't know what it meant, obviously it's an adjective. Okay, and what does it mean? Okay, think pompous, arrogant. He thinks a lot of himself, basically. Provincial, of your province. Now you're going to have to read into this a little bit, but provincial could imply that he is a little bit insular. By insular I mean, and this isn't a criticism per se, but I think Priestley means it such, that you've never left your province, that you've never travelled and seen other lives, you've only sort of lived in your own little area, your own comfort zone, you've never got out of it. And such, he speaks with the accent around his province, and so I'm really reading into this, okay? Remember that a writer will imply something, but a reader or an audience in this case could infer. Okay, so Priestley implies, and I'm inferring from it, that maybe he's someone that's never been outside of his little area and therefore he's insular. If you look up insular, insular means someone that has never left their little area and they're very comfortable in their own surroundings. It can imply, it can be pejorative. By pejorative just means insulting. It could be pejorative And that's saying he hasn't had a life outside his own, and therefore he can't understand other people's struggles. Okay. Fairly easy manners, but rather provincial in his speech. Yeah, so that's why I'm reading it, because he's praised him here, easy manners, but then he's got a but, connective but, provincial in his speech. I'm reading that's possibly pejorative in nature. Then you've got Mrs. Birling. So this is the first quote you should be citing about her. His wife is about 50, a rather cold woman, and a husband's social superior. Right, cold. Obviously, we know that doesn't just mean temperature cold. Reading into cold, the adjective cold, okay, this means that she could be unkind, uncaring. There's nothing worse than meeting a cold person. They're hard to talk to. They generally don't connect very well. She's a husband's social superior. Right, is she upper class like the Crofts? Maybe. It's implied that she possibly could be. This would come under an AO3 context point. So we know the Birlings are sort of upper middle class, if you like, or at least middle class, but the Crofts are definitely upper class, because later on it mentions Lord and Lady Croft. But she says, it says here that she is his social superior. So she can marry him, but I'm just going to put contextually, is that awkward? It's implied here it might be. Or at least she knows what she is and she thinks she's better than him and everybody else. Okay, Sheila is a pretty girl. Okay, nice adjective, pretty. She's a pretty girl. You know what pretty means. Connotations of pretty, lively, vivacious, kind. It doesn't just necessarily mean physically pretty, okay? So when you get yourself an adjective like this, always go through, oh goodness, I'm running out of places to write, the connotations, that's the associations most people have with the word or phrase, the connotations that most people can read into it. So she could be physically attractive. Okay, she's physically attractive. But she could also be kind. Okay, it's up to you, well, the director reading this and the audience watching this, what you see on the stage or on screen if it's made into a film adaptation. Pretty girl in her early 20s, very pleased with life and rather excited. Read into this as you will. I wonder if it makes her sound a little bit silly. Very pleased with life. Is she spoilt? Is she immature? I don't know. It makes her sound possibly a bit childish. She's young, she's naive, that sort of thing. Okay, Gerald then. Gerald Croft is an attractive chap about 30, so he's older than her, which was, you know, fine. Rather too manly to be a dandy. Ah, a dandy, it's kind of... Look up dandy, see what you make of it. But very much the easy, well-bred young man about town. See, that to me, not too manly to be a dandy. Yes, so he's a man's man. He's traditional man, in other words. Well-bred young man about... All this means is he is very much marriage quality. Or marriage material is what I'm trying to say. Okay? He's eligible. Eric, now this is the weird one, and this is where you should be, upon reading this, or as a director at least having this portrayed through your actor of Eric, this should set alarm bells, because it says he's in his early 20s. Yeah, makes sense, similar age to his sister Sheila. Not quite at ease. Okay, so I take that as he's unsettled. So he's not like Sheila, different creature entirely. Half shy. We know what shy means. Someone's shy. They may be socially awkward. They don't talk much. They wait to be spoken to. Half assertive. Assertive is the opposite of shy. If you're assertive, you're very good at politely asking for what you want. So these two, really, to me, contradict each other. Contradict each other. So has he got a split personality? What's going on with him? This is weird. Okay, this should put you on alert to think. I'm going to highlight it because this one really stands out, and I think this one is commonly missed by students. They don't see that, oh, that's weird. Okay, there's a few sort of red flags in this, and that's one of them. I think the other one is husband social superior for Mrs. Birling. Don't underestimate class differences, okay, for context point, because they can cause issues, okay? And also the fact he's provincial, he doesn't know any better. At the moment, they have all had a good dinner, are celebrating a special occasion, which we know is the engagement, and are pleased with themselves. Is this Priestley's way of making them sound smug, self-satisfied, or are they just genuinely pleased? Again, I'll let you, the reader, you should be the audience, but the reader of these stage directions, infer what you will here. But there's lots of key clues, and feel free to quote, take quotes from here and put up questions or just leave your comments. But it's very easy to annotate a lot here, and you can see how I've covered quite a few points. The context really is the fact that they're wealthy, and there's some class divide in here that needs to be noted quite early on. But really, it's a good section for characters. All of the characters are pretty much covered with something right at the beginning in Act 1. Okay, so this is right at the beginning, the Act 1 stage directions. Okay, note these. It's important that you pay good attention to these, and I would say use each of the lines about the characters, how they appear at first, as your. I would start with quoting a stage direction about the character and how they appear in Act 1 before moving on to their speech or a stage direction about them later on in the play. I hope this is helpful. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget that if you like what you see, please click the thumbs up icon and feel free to subscribe. Click the bell to see all future videos. And if you've got thoughts on what you'd like me to analyse next, please comment in the comments section. You can always find me by typing into the search Pass English GCSE.